Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this village board meeting to order tonight. Kelly, please call roll.
Trustee Garcia,
Here.
Trustee Malone,
Here.
Trustee O'Sullivan,
Here.
Trustee Andreessen,
Here.
Trustee Frost.
Here.
Trustee Vela,
Here.
and President Skillman.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for Pastor Tom. Pledge allegiance.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, once again, we gather together at this time of the year to very appropriately express our gratitude and thanksgiving for 243 years of freedom. While we watch the rest of this world continue to, in their attempts to engineer outcome, we thank you that we live in a land that provides opportunity. Thank you, Lord, to exercise our limitless abilities and creative nature that you placed within us, that we can only ascribe to you, our God and Creator. Thank you for this nation. Thank you for our freedom. And thank you for the electricity that's going to keep working. Father, as we continue here on this local level, and equally as important, we honor that sacred trust as we continue to stand with our trustees as they make decisions for the betterment of our community in all of its various facets and services. We ask you to increase their wisdom, their strength, their resolve, furnish them with the information and knowledge necessary to make the right choices, and renew them in their commitment to serve our community in equity and honesty, that they be established in the eternal rules of order and right which heaven itself has ordained. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you. Okay.
Good one. That's a good one.
Okay, we have no awards tonight? No. No appointments?
None needed.
No public comment? Nobody. Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the trustee so requests, in which the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
I'd like to remove item D from the agenda,
Okay,
and also,
shouldn't I have a second for that? Remove
I'll
it?
second that.
Okay. No vote?
Yep.
And we want a motion to approve A, B, C, E.
A motion to approve all items except D.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by trustee Sullivan, a second by trustee Frost. Please call a roll.
Trustee Frost,
Yes.
Trustee Vela,
yes.
Trustee Garcia,
Yes.
Trustee Malone,
Yes.
Trustee O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Trustee Andreessen,
Yes.
and President Skillman.
Yes, consent agenda passes. Thank you. Okay, item D.
I will recuse myself.
Yep, thank you. Item D for our special event permit. I need a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by trustee O'Sullivan. Trustee Malone, second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Trustee Andreessen,
Yes.
Trustee Frost,
Yes.
Trustee Garcia,
Yes.
Trustee Malone,
Yes.
and President Skillman.
Yes, the motion carries. Thank you. And someone grab her.
I'd like to.
You can't walk.
He'd get there quicker.
Okay, next item on the agenda is manager's report.
We'll invite Ed Zidlowski with Public Works to come up and introduce the presentation tonight about the Wakefield Drainage Study.
Hello.
Senator Johnson said, H.R. Green is here this evening. Last year, we approved, the village board approved an agreement to have H.R. Green do a drainage analysis and study for drainage area at Wakefield Drive by Bristol. that they provided a presentation last fall, I believe, and with comments from the village board, they went back and kind of revisited that. They also provided some options as what we could do for improvements. So this evening, Ajay Jain and Jared Oliver are here, and Ajay is going to present their presentation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Well, it's raining like crazy now. Maybe we can go out and survey it.
Field trip, yeah.
We can calibrate to a storm event.
Everybody in Ajay's van.
Well, good evening, President Skillman and the Board of Trustees, and welcome to the new trustees to the board as well. So again, as Ed said, my name is Ajay Jain with HR Green, and I'm here with my colleague, Jared Oliver, who has worked with me on this project. He's handing over a copy of the presentation for your review and questioning as well. So without further ado, I'll start with a little bit of
You're talking to the mic, Ajay.
Microphone.
yeah, I will. I just
Louder.
Okay. So we'll, here is the agenda. We'll go through the existing conditions as to what is happening at the intersection of Wakefield and Bristol. Talk about some of the options we have looked at and what the findings were. We'll summarize the options as well as what each of the options would cost, and also discuss some of the next steps that the board can decide, going forward. So the Wakefield and Bristol intersection is located on the east part of the town, east of Route 25 and north of Illinois 68 along Wakefield. This intersection has had history of flooding every time it has rained, some more severe and some less severe, depending on the amount of rain that has come through in the past. As you can see on the screen as well as in your presentation, there is a significant amount of drainage area that comes to this intersection. It's a low point in the watershed with the only conduit through which the water can drain out is along Wakefield going east, and then it crosses the village corporate boundaries and then drains into the village of East Dundee. That is a big constraint for us, as we will talk about, because while the intent is to provide the relief for this intersection, we also have to watch for the downstream impact. So it's a balancing act to do what is needed to reduce the severity and extent of flooding, but at the same time, not pass the problem downstream. The pictures that you see on this exhibit are from the July 2017 storm. As you can see, there was substantial amount of flooding in that storm event, and that is an important storm event, as we will talk further as we go into the presentation. So we developed a computer model for this intersection to just really understand, first of all, what is happening and what the solutions could be. So as we develop a computer model, we have to first calibrate the model to make sure it's reflecting what's happening out there. So we used the July 2017 storm to calibrate because we had some really good data, including pictures, so we could calibrate to that storm event. To the left to the left, you see the extent of flooding that happened during the 2017 storm event based on the pictures that we had. And on the right, you see the results from our computer model. They match pretty closely, which means that the model we are using to propose solutions to you is a well-calibrated model. Besides the 2017 storm event, we also looked at what has historically happened in regards to the storm events in the village of Carpentersville. So we used a nearby gauge stream, which is the Tyler Creek gauge, and we looked at the amount of rain that fell in a certain duration and tried to map it on this chart. What this chart shows, the horizontal lines shows the 2-year to 100-year storm. And as we map the amount of rain that falls over a certain period of time, we can tell whether that storm event was a 10-year, 25-year, 50-year, or 100-year. So what this represents is that over the last 12 years of data that we have since 2007, you have had several storm events, but none of those storm events have exceeded. The worst that you had was close to a 50-year event. Most of them were between a 10 and 25-year storm event. So as I said on this, on the previous slide, the storm that we calibrated was the 2017 storm. And the worst performing storm, we've kind of put all of these storm events through our computer model, and the worst performing storm was the September 13th of 2008 storm event. What you see up on the bar there, that is an important part of our analysis because that is the vertical 2-hour storm, which means that it takes about 2 hours when the rainstorm starts for this area to get the worst that it does. So when we look at the next slide, so we looked at the 2-hour storm and we mapped the 10-year, the 25-year, and the 100-year, just to kind of know what happens in these storm events, because you haven't had a 100-year storm event in this, but what would happen if it did? So as you can see from this, the depth of ponding at this intersection ranges from anywhere from 1.6 feet for a 10-year storm to over 3 feet for a 100-year storm. By about 2 feet or so, you start to get property damages, which is what we want to avoid. We also want to reduce the duration and extent of flooding in the roadway. So based on this mapping and as well as looking at all the historical storms, we work with the staff to come up with the basis of design. What should be the basis of design to which we design to, knowing that we have the constraint that we cannot increase flows to the neighboring community in East Dundee to which this area drains to. So the Kane County Stormwater Ordinance, which is a published ordinance that you have to follow, recommends that the storm sewers be designed for a 10-year storm event, and we are going to do that. So in a 10-year storm event, at which point in today's conditions you see about 1.6 feet of ponding, we'll be designing it to 0 feet of ponding for a 10-year storm event. We also extended the design storm for a 25-year event such that some flooding will happen, but you will be able to have one lane open at all times, and the duration of that flooding will be significantly reduced from what it is experiencing today. We also looked at the board's recommendation, what option would it take to completely eliminate the 100-year storm event, which we'll talk about. We also wanted to reduce or eliminate the risks to the properties as part of our design, which we will be talking about as well. And last but not the least, while we do all of these, our main objective is to make sure that we don't put the village in a situation that you're fighting some impacts that you're causing downstream. So we looked at a number of options, about 10 of these, and we ruled out some of the options as being feasible or cost prohibitive, but we narrowed it down to 3 options that we would want to present to you today. And it includes a combination of improved storm sewer conveyance, detention, and also using some opportunities for infiltration. So option 1 is more or less like a 100-year protection, but it does entail a lot of improvements at a cost of about $3 million. It does include substantial amount of detention that would be needed to store all that water that is currently being stored in the street or in the roadway. So the opportunities for detention on this project exist to the west of Wakefield, and there will be some property acquisitions as noted in this slide. So we are proposing detention on the south side of Bristol, on the church property, and also on the school property to the north. Total combined detention between those two is about, as I said, 14 acre-feet. It will also include substantial amount of storm sewer improvements along Wakefield and also on Kingston. It does eliminate roadway flooding by a considerable amount and all property damages for up to a 100-year storm. Some of the items to consider as you think about this option is that you would have to acquire some vacant property south of Bristol, but you would also have to negotiate an easement or an intergovernmental agreement with the school district and also with the park district, because this option is significantly contingent upon the school allowing the deep detention basin to be put on their property to the extent, and I should advise you, that it will be about 4 to 5 feet of water on the school property, which over time will not allow them to use that for the function that it is serving today. So as we looked at the next option, that is pretty close to the first option, but a little bit cheaper than the first option. And it does include more or less the same improvements as in option 1, except that we shallowed the amount of detention and the ponding on the school property. So compared to about 4 to 5 feet of ponding in the first option, this option will only flood the school by about no more than a foot, which will also recede very quickly, which means that outside of the storm events, they will have the full functionality of those playing fields. So a little bit easier from a coordination standpoint as you talk with the school district. The third option that we looked at was pretty attractive and came about through discussions with the staff. But it does significantly reduce the amount of detention that you would need, which is some detention south of Bristol, but shallow detention on the school property. It does eliminate all of the storm sewer improvements along Wakefield, which is a huge cost savings. As you can see, the total price tag on this option is about $1.6 to $1.8 million. And same type of coordination would need to happen with the school, but because the amount of ponding that we are proposing on the school is pretty shallow, we hope that they will be more amenable to this option. Another significant change between this option and option 1 and 2 is the acquisition of 2 parcels that are most of the time impacted by the flood events, which is east of Wakefield and south of Bristol. So rather than putting all of the detention on the school property as in option 1, we are using these 2 most affected parcels to provide some detention and also reduce the property damages. So that does add property buyouts that weren't applicable in options 1 and 2. So as we look at these 3 options, side by side, you can see in the comparison. So the existing conditions show the 10-year 1.6 feet of ponding to 100-year about 3.1. And option 1, as I said, is your 100-year protection. It does eliminate the 100-year ponding. Option 2 and option 3 are very similar, but obviously with them being almost $1 million apart, there is probably no reason why we would recommend you to go with option 2, because you get the same level of benefit with option 3. So if you look at the bottom of the table, which is probably as important to look at those in relation to the 10 and 100 year, because if all of those historical storm events that we talked about that has happened over the last 12 years, for all of those storm events, if they were to occur after the implementation of option 2 or option 3, or let's just say option 3, because that's what we are recommending, you would see very insignificant amount of flooding, almost to the point that the water is contained within the roadway, and rather than it staying as it currently does for hours, it'll go away in 30 minutes or less. So the next slide is just a recap of what happens in the option 3, which is a recommended option. And if you go to the next slide, and I would say on this, just in a summary, as you kind of evaluate these, with the implementation, and again, I will talk about the phases, because option 3, while a recommended option, you don't have to do all of it at one time. We kind of develop a phased approach. So you can implement that in phases, and after the completion of each phase, you can wait out a couple of storm events and see how the system performs. Maybe that is an acceptable level of protection for you, but if you do want to expand on it and get more protection, you can build upon the completion of phase 1 to phase 2 and phase 3 and so forth to get the full benefit that we are recommending. So again, it'll address the design criteria that we were set out to begin with. The next slide just presents what would happen in these 3 phases. The first phase would just include building the detention south of Bristol. The second phase will be adding on to the detention by building some detention on the school property. And the third phase, if you do choose to implement that, would be the last one, which is to acquire those 2 properties, if you so choose, and then build more detention on that. So as far as next steps, the staff and HR Green is recommending that option 3 is the most cost-effective option while providing you a much increased level of protection. We also recommend that the board choose to initiate the preliminary design for all the phases, and then do the final design for phase one.
You sold
and
it.
Start budget discussions,
You
and
sold it, Ajay. You sold it.
okay,
You're awesome.
then I'll shut up.
No, thank you. Anybody have any
I have,
questions?
I do.
I do.
Well, hold
I
on
do
a
too.
minute.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Trustee O'Sullivan.
Well, I guess the first question, so the fields that the school board owns, those are actively being used as athletic fields today?
That's where they are designated to be. I don't think the staff has had. Yeah.
But they're currently being used?
Yeah.
Okay, so the odds of them giving up their use entirely, like for option one, that's pretty much off the table anyway.
Kevin Gray and I met with them last year, two representatives, two staff members from the school district, and they were open to the less deeper detention facility where they know water is going to be detained here for a short period of time and then released. They were open to that, to this plan.
I mean, this is kind of answering itself, so there's not a lot of difference between 2 and 3, except that 3 is less costly. I mean, this is kind of answering itself, right, Phil?
Correct. And option 3 can be done in the stages, as you said, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I got
My
one
question-
more, I'm sorry.
Okay.
On,
No, I'm sorry, Trustee Frost.
My question was fences around the detention. If it's going to be by the schools, or will there be fences around the detention?
Well, if you go with the shallow, that could be a point of discussion with the school. If you
Okay.
do, definitely go with
Just,
the deeper one.
I'm just wondering, because with the kids being out there, and you said east of Wakefield and south of Bristol were the land acquisitions?
Correct.
What, west of? South of Bristol, okay. Was it west? East, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be southeast corner. of-
Yeah, okay, southeast corner,
And it's
okay.
kind of shown in that blue.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, so is that one structure, or is that one house?
Two homes.
2 homes, okay. All right, thank you.
Trustee Garcia.
yes, on your page 10, is that a body water? On your right, right above the legend? Body of water?
No, that's the property.
The blue?
Oh, no, yeah, that is a body of water.
Okay,
That-
that's a body
in
of
the-
water.
Yes, yes.
Is there any way we can divert that excess water into that?
That question has come up, and
That's
and
east
that's a
on
good
Lee.
question. But we are actually taking some of the water from this project to connect to a storm sewer on Gulfview that drains to that lake.
Okay.
So we are using that.
Awesome. Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay.
Okay, any other managers' reports?
Fire chief wanted to give a very brief update.
President Skillman, members of the board, Manager Johnson. During the month of October of 2018, the Carpentersville Fire Department was evaluated by the Insurance Service Office in its ability to respond to fires in buildings and other structures within the corporate limits of Carpentersville and within our fire protection district. ISO rates the department with the possibility of up to 105 points. And those points are broken down into 10% consisting of our communications capabilities. The village water distribution system is 40% of the grade, and the fire department itself is 50% of the grade. Based on a final cumulative score, fire departments are rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being superior in meeting the needs of the community and the standards of ISO, and 10 not meeting the standards of ISO and no needs of the community. I'm proud to announce that effective October 1st, 2019, the Carpentersville Fire Department will be rated as a Class 2 fire department. Of the 41,177 fire departments which ISO evaluates, we are now in the top 5% of that number. We received a cumulative score of 86.91 points, which leaves us just 3.09 points away from a Class 1 rating. This is a significant improvement from the 1995 rating of Class 5. What this means to the residents and the commercial property owners is that the new classification could result in lower property insurance rates. These results also demonstrate how the fire department has capitalized on the efforts of the village by investing in the fire department's ability to respond to the community needs. On behalf of the fire department personnel, our residents and business owners, I'd like to thank President Skillman, the Board of Trustees, and Village Manager Johnson for your support. And in closing, I'd like to recognize the following individuals. Director Beth Heitkamp from Quadcom, who gave a lot of information and helped support us in this score. Dean Gorder, our village water superintendent, who was instrumental in putting together a lot of information. And a special gratitude to Battalion Chief Bob Beatty, who coordinated and compiled an incredible amount of information which produced this improvement in our classification.
Thank you.
Questions?
Well, we'll take it offline, but we want to know the balance of cost versus benefit to close that gap to 1, because sometimes the cost to get to 1 isn't worth the benefit to get there, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir. We've already started our analysis of that, and we'll be coming to you with recommendations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
Okay, next on the agenda, old business?
None.
New business?
None.
Trustee reports. Trustee Vela.
I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe 4th of July. Enjoy your time with family and friends, and also reminding everyone to please don't forget to go visit the Wall That Heals. It's on Randall Oak Park in West Dundee, and it's from July the 4th to the 7th. So please stop and enjoy looking at our Vietnam War Memorial.
Thank you. Trustee Frost.
Just a couple things. We were an escort for that Wall That Heals today, and it was a great trip from Woodstock all the way to Dundee, Randall Oaks. All the fire departments along the route are awesome. Had all their engines out. People along the whole parade route was it was just fantastic. So make sure you do come out and see that this weekend. It's a must-see. Couple new laws that came into effect yesterday. One that I'm happy about, one that we just got to deal with. But texting and driving, real situation, especially in construction zones. It's a moving violation now, I believe. After 3, your possible license could possibly be suspended. Something to think about. You see it a lot while you're out there driving. Did go to the clergy worship night. It was a fantastic night 2 Fridays ago, Pastor? Yeah, the 21st. I would suggest going next year. It was very nice, very beautiful night. The skies opened up and sun came through. No rain came through, so that was awesome. Good night, a fellowship. And I want to thank State Senator Christine Castro for the help bringing us some funding for some upcoming road construction in Carpentersville. That's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Andreessen.
No, they don't have anything today.
No report. Trustee O'Sullivan.
Just a reminder that leave the fireworks to the experts. We'd really rather not our fire department respond to a tragedy with illegal fireworks, reminding you that most fireworks in the state of Illinois are illegal for private citizens to possess. Other than that, nothing to report.
Thank you. Trustee Malone.
I have nothing tonight.
Trustee Garcia.
Just like Trustee Frost said, Trustee Frost, President Skillman, and myself had the honor to be part of the procession with the Wall That Heals. It was a phenomenal experience. It's a one-in-a-lifetime thing. It was completely unbelievable to see the pool of people coming out to the street with their flags, waving at people driving by, people that were stuck in traffic, out of their cars, saluting. It was I can't describe the experience. It was phenomenal. I really encourage you to go to Randall Oaks and look at the wall. It's also it moved me a lot to see all those Vietnam veterans that have not been thanked properly. I invite everybody to go out there, shake hands, and thank them for their service. And finally, United for You, a non-for-profit organization based in Carpentersville, is having a car show on 4th of July. I talked about it last time, but it's coming. It's this Thursday. Come celebrate America's birthday. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I echo Trustee Frost. Trustee Garcia with today. We had a good time bringing that wall into town from Woodstock Harley. And Saturday night was fireworks. I got lots of great comments on the fireworks. So we had a great show here in town again. So thank you for everybody that came out, and Public Works and everybody helping out in PD and fire. So I think that's all I have. Anything else, Kelly? You don't have anything else? I'd like a motion to take a quick 5-minute recess at this time.
Motion to recess, so.
Trustee
Second
Sullivan,
that.
Second, Trustee Frost. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 5 minutes.